Welcome to the Ben Wood Johnson podcast. You can visit Dr. Johnson's blog at benwoodpost.com. Dr. Johnson's works can be found at drbenwoodjohnson.com. You can also support Dr. Johnson on Patreon, the link to which is in the description. Welcome back to the Ben Wood Johnson podcast. I am so glad to have you back here with me. Today is September 11th, 2023. This is podcast number 74. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I am thrilled. I am happy to be back. And I hope this is it. This is it. This is the moment where the Ben Wood Johnson podcast is back online to stay. Because over the last few months, if not year, I've been telling you that we're coming back, and we've not been able to come back because every time something comes up, some distraction, I have been bombarded by distractions, and it's been by design. And as you will hear in this series of podcasts, I have been purposefully distracted. But I believe at this point that there's been a conspiracy to keep me busy for nothing, because I have not been busy doing anything significant. I've been busy for nothing. I've been fighting, avoiding hits from here, avoiding hits from there. I've been in a fight of my life, and please stick with me in these podcasts. You will hear what I mean by that. These podcasts are going to be dedicated to me, to my family, to my plight in America. These episodes are designed to give you a glimpse into my personal life, my personal plight in America. It's been a difficult time for me, difficult time for my family. Over the last few years, I have been in the fight of my life. I have never fought that hard before. And so far, I am still fighting back, and I'm coming out unscathed from this fight, and hopefully it remains that way. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast, and if you're watching us on YouTube, please like and subscribe and come back for more. I promise you I will try my best to get the series of podcasts up and running from this point forward. Without further ado, let us delve right into it. I have said this before, and I am going to say it again. I do not like to talk about myself. I don't find it productive to talk about me, to talk about my stories, to talk about my realities. But sometimes I have to make an exception. Today is one of those times when I make an exception. And I think the next few podcasts are going to be somewhat dedicated to me. I have to do myself this favor because it is important. I have to leave my mark in my history, in your history, so that perhaps one day we can both look back and laugh at that, laugh at those moments and say, well, oh boy, it was a tough time. Okay. But I think it is important to talk a little bit about myself. So the next few podcasts are going to be dedicated again to me, to my family, to who I am, where I am from, what I have to offer this world, this country, this society, this human experience. Okay. I have been living in these United States for more than half of my life now. I came to this country a young man, and when I came here, America was not my original destination. I had left home, running away from individuals seeking to end my life. And I had, to some extent, take refuge here. But my destination was a different place. So when I first left home, I ended up in Mexico, where I studied medicine. to a great universities. I went to a great university there, and I was supposed to be a médico cirujano, as they say in Spanish. Over the course of my studies there, I realized that, I could do better. I could do better for myself by being in America. Now, considering that I had the proper documentations to be in America, so I made the transition from Mexico to America. And there I've been living ever since. I have not returned home. I have been home only to see the land. And quite frankly, every time I go home, I can't stay no longer than 2-3 days there. In fact, last time I went home, I did not stay more than 1 day. I remember the plane landed, went to the places that I was supposed to go, and things shifted so fast, so quickly, that I had to get in the plane the next day, literally, get in the next plane and get back to the States. And it was important for me to do so because, things were about to unfold back home. That my presence there was somewhat a threat to whatever it is that was supposed to unfold. And people assumed that I knew what was going to happen, and they thought it was necessary to eliminate me on the spot. My senses told me to get the hell out, which I did. So I took the next plane. I remember when I went to the airport, and I asked this lady, what is the next plane leaving this place? And she said, well, the next plane is leaving 1 hour. And I said, how much is the ticket? She said, well, the ticket is this. And I said, okay, money's not the issue here. I got to get the hell out. And I purchased the ticket, went back to the States immediately. And a few months later, there was a lot of things unfolding at home. And I realized that is why my life was so in danger, because they had plans for some people at home that my presence threatened, and they thought that I knew what was going to happen, and I had no idea. I just wanted to go home. I just wanted to see my land. Okay? So I have been living in America for quite some time. And in the beginning, it wasn't a wonderful experience, although I had a nightmare at the border, which I'll talk about in another context. But being in America was great. Came to America, built a family. I went to school, and that's what I've been doing. I've been going to school, learning about the society, learning about the people, learning about the culture, finding out what's good about America, and unfortunately experiencing what is also bad, what is disgusting, what is this really disheartening, demoralizing about America. So I've gone through it all. A few years ago, I moved into a neighborhood. And when I moved there, a few things caught my attention. The neighbors, a few of them knew who I was before I moved in. They knew my name, even the phone that I just installed in the house. I had not even moved in the house. They knew that phone number. They knew everything about me. So that sort of caught my attention. It's like, how do they know who I am? So have they been investigating me? And then I realized that they have. Okay, in the beginning it didn't really bother me because new neighbors are moving in. Some people want to know who you are, and I didn't think there was anything wrong with that they wanted to know who I am. But over time, I sense an animosity, and I remember one time I had bought a new car. One of those neighbors came up to me and says, "How the hell did you afford this car? What are you doing for a living? How can you afford this car?" And I was quite taken by that question, because where I'm from, you don't ask people that kind of questions, right? So culturally, it was a shock to me, and I was quite taken by it. I'm like, what? So those were signs, and being in the neighborhood, things happened. One time I was going to pick up my son from school. I was pulled over by the police near the school, intimidated there. Apparently some neighbors had seen a black man parked near the school, had made assumptions, and had called the police, and the police had come, and then they came after me. Another time in the school, they went after my son, accused him of things, trying to belittle him, to destroy him. And over time, I realized that, wait a minute, they don't want me in that community. It became clear, it became obvious to me, right? They don't want me in that community. And I kept my distance. I didn't bother people. I just lived my life and stick to my family, because I was raising a young man, and I felt it was necessary to remain constant, to remain true to myself, to teach my sons, to teach my children what's good about this world, and to ignore, the noises and, the toxic people. And I had neighbors that were toxic, and I sensed it early on in my experience, and I sort of stay away from them. Try to focus on my life, so focus on helping, on raising my kids. And the problem started to spill over in other places. It was not only at the neighborhood level, it was at the regional level, because there were things happening to me that somewhat suggested that some folks in the neighborhood were making calls. Now, initially it sounded like, like a conspiracy, and I was quite reluctant to talk about this openly like that. But over time, I realized, well, that's exactly what was going on. That's exactly what is going on, right? So there were people that somehow targeted me, and some of them made it obvious. I remember a few times I was mowing my lawn, and some individuals passed by and reminded me I'm a nigger, reminding me that I'm not from here, that I'm supposed to go back where I come from, so all these things sort of, coupled, and I wasn't easy. I didn't feel comfortable in the neighborhood, but I felt stuck, to the extent that, it was a nice neighborhood, the school's great, and I thought it was an opportunity to give my children a better life, a life that I never had. And I just stuck with it, because I knew. And by the way, where I am from, we've always dealt with bad neighbors. So I'm sort of familiar with neighbors that resent you for whatever the reason. So I didn't really take it personally, to the extent that I felt like I had to, be on the defensive. Just ignore them as much as I could. And I did. Like I said, things spilled over into other things, and I had a sense that, I was targeted. Now, I don't want to talk about the story of my life. That's not the point of this podcast here. What I'm trying to say here is that it's sort of on and off. There are certain times when it's much more prevalent, and there are times when it's not. For example, every summer I have to fight. Like every summer, there are some shenanigans, there are some stuff happening, either in the neighborhood itself, the neighbors themselves, or somehow, somewhere, at some point, somebody is going to launch an attack. I'm going to have to defend myself, having to deal with this. Like every year, there's something. When it's cold, the summer, everybody's indoors, not a lot happens. But every summer, there's something going on. Well, I have to tell you that I've been in hell in America, and I think I've expressed that feeling a few times in other podcasts, and this is precisely because of that. Okay, I've been in hell in this country, and they have tried everything they can to undermine me, to undermine my family. But I'm gonna say it out loud: we are righteous people. At least we aspire. We are God-fearing individuals. We are law-abiding citizens, law-abiding people. We fear the Lord. We fear the law. And we do everything as righteous as possible. That doesn't mean we are perfect. Nobody is, and I couldn't say that I am, or my wife or my children are. I couldn't say that. But we are not, at the level where we deserve to be harassed or targeted and whatever it is, okay? We're living our life like normal people. We have a normal family. My children are trying their best to be human beings in America. And quite frankly, it is hard because they're watching my struggle. And it's hard for me to try to convince them that something else is going on, because they can see. Now remember, these are young men, and they're watching their parents going through hell in a country that doesn't belong to them. So this is to give you an idea of who my children are going to be if this is not, stop, if that doesn't stop at some point, because they're targeting me every time, everywhere, in any way they can. And I have no recourse. I have reached out to every imaginable authority in this region. I've even gone to the FBI. I've went to the Attorney General. I've gone to the state police, and they're after me. They're determined to bring me down. Now, I don't know why to this day. To this very moment that I am talking to you, I have absolutely no idea. Now, over time, I'm beginning to identify some of them. Now I know a few of them because a few of them have made the mistake of revealing themselves to me. So a few of these people who have made me their enemy, I know who they are. I know where they are because they've revealed themselves to me. Because up until a few years ago, I didn't know who they were. But now I know. At least some of them I know. I've identified them. I've identified a few of them. About a few years ago, I tried to rebuild myself because they've tried to corner me every way they can. And I have tried to rebuild myself. And I found out that one of the person that was supposed to help me was somehow trying to undermine me as much as possible. That individual tried everything possible to make me doubt myself, to second guess myself, and to believe that somehow that I'm not worthy enough. Okay. And initially I thought, maybe I'm just making ideas and it's not what it is. But over time, I realized that's what it was. And I came to realize that individual had all the bad intentions for me since the minute we met. Though not physically, but since the minute this person's life touched mine, there was an intent to destroy me. Now, that person did not succeed. And there's a smearing campaign at this point. And I'm watching that. Like I said, my children are watching this. We are watching it. My family, my friends, we are watching. Because everybody who knows me is aware of my plight in this area. Because I tell them those stories. Okay? Now, they're determined. We're getting weird phone calls. We're getting weird emails. We're getting weird messages, And recently we got a mail that was sent to us because, again, they've been communicating with us via the mail. And, they've opened our mails. They've looked into anything that has a value, and they've opened it to see what's in it. As a result, I've not been able to receive mail, be certain that my mails are private. Again, I've reached out to the authorities. Don't be saying this doesn't happen. It's happening to us, not to me, to us right now in America. It's happening. It's not a conspiracy. This is happening right at this moment. And we have reached out to every person, everybody, and nobody seems to give a hoot. So what are the options? Well, it's going to get to a point where, I'm afraid. I'm afraid of what's going to happen because now I have a sense that they're preparing a big blow. Now, the question is, what can I do? I do not have many options, okay? And I will not sit down and whip and cry. Now, I want you to imagine for a second what I am going through. Here I am on the country that's not mine. Okay, this is not my country. Okay, they're trying everything in their power to make my life a living hell in it. At the same time, I can't go home. So I am not welcome at home either. So just imagine for a second. Put yourself in my shoes for a minute. Here I am in a place that I'm supposed to be able to live free. Like they say here, you come here, you're in a place of democracy, freedom, whatever. That's what they say here. I'm not living in that freedom. I'm not living in that democracy. For so many years, they've tried to bring me down personally, physically, emotionally. And I've withstood that. They've tried everything to bring me down. I have withstood that. And I'm still standing. Now my children are much older. Now they're at the forefront of it. My son was supposed to enter a new school this fall. He is not going to. Because he was attacked by a man from the admissions directly in my face. And I was powerless watching this guy go after my son. And I couldn't do nothing. I could do nothing to stop it. And I'm watching him going after my son. Now, my son, he knows now what it feels like because I've been telling him stories. I've been telling him stories about how they've tried to destroy me. Now, this young man has worked hard. Some guy decided to go after him. Now, I'm trying my best to help him see a silver lining in the whole thing, though I don't see it myself, but I'm trying to convince him everything's going to be okay. But I have a sense that the same thing, the same life that they gave me here in this country, they're about to give the same life to my kids. Now, I'm going to say this one more time. Whatever it is they think is going to happen, it is not going to be the way they think. That I can promise you. I can promise you.